Mr. Kip Sorensen, what's up, brother? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see you. You have a good Easter.
I survived the weekend with Easter and my birthday and everything else that was going on. So
Yeah.
here we are back to it,
Yeah.
which I
It's
actually like being back to work.
me too. It was so we usually have a big my wife's super social, right? So Easter weekend is like I eventually in the weekend with like I just want to be alone and do laundry.
Right.
You know
For
what I mean?
sure.
Like
I'm
I
the
don't want to
same
be
way,
around people
minus the
anymore.
laundry thing.
Yeah. But it was also conference weekend at the same time. And for a conference, we usually invite people over. I'll make Indian fry bread, and and we decided to still do both over the weekend. So I'm like, oh my gosh,
Dang.
like,
I got to get
but
to work. I want to
I
go into the
did
office so
eat
people will leave me alone.
totally. I did eat 5 Indian tacos yesterday. So I'm
So I
like,
always I
that
always
may have
refer
been
to
too
them as
much.
Navajo tacos. Is that what they are? Is that the same thing?
Well, if you're Navajo, yeah, that's the
Well, it's like
general
politically
gist. All
incorrect
the
or whatever.
yeah, all the
We all know what
non-Navajos
people are
call them
talking
Indian
about.
tacos. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was actually, it was funny because I was somewhere I can't remember, and we called them Navajo tacos, is what we called them. And somebody
Mhm.
asked somebody who was actually Navajo what they called it, and they said tacos.
Yeah. That's super
That was
funny.
pretty funny. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty insane that we live in this world of like political correctness. And what if one person on the planet happens to be offended or takes it out of context? Or
It's
I was
silly.
watching. Do you ever have you ever watched this show called Studio C?
I know about it, but I've never
Okay,
watched
it's
it.
really funny. It's
Yeah.
it's like Saturday Night Live or something like that, but a family friendly version of it. So my kids
Yeah.
watch it all the time. And there was this skit on there. Uh, the guy's name is Stacy, and he's a black guy, and they're all pretending to be crayons. And he got assigned the skin color crayon, which is our skin color, right? And he's like, and I got assigned this. Just think about that for 1 second. And it was a joke, but I don't know how long that skit was made. I don't even know if that would fly today, which is sad. It's just a joke. Everybody needs to lighten up and just relax a little bit. But
Yeah.
man, people are so uptight about the slightest thing that might hurt somebody's feelings or offend and usually it's not even offensive. It just it's just a bunch of virtue signaling of I'm better than you. I'm morally superior because I thought about that and you didn't think about that one thing you said and how it might actually hurt somebody's feelings.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. And some of that is it's out of like well, we're as an example, I was talking with Asia about this, and we're saying that sometimes when people are a little ignorant about certain cultures, right? They
Of
they
course.
might they might dress up, or you know what I mean, because they're intrigued by it. But the person that knows a lot more about the culture might be offended, like, but where's that coming from? It's coming from a place of like, I'm interested in that.
Right.
I'm stupid. I
Interested,
don't know the
fascination.
details, but I'm fascinated about it and I'm trying. Right. It's like literally from
Yeah.
a place of like, of appreciation. It's not from a place of like being insulting or anything else, but
Right.
yet it's like, oh, how dare you wear, I don't know, a headdress because my ancestors, it's like, yeah,
I know.
they don't
I
know
know.
that. They think it's neat. It's
Yeah.
like it comes from a place of interest, not from a place
Well,
of
and
like trying to be a little, so
it
I don't know.
is. And I think most people that, let's say somebody wears a traditional garment that a particular culture may wear, I think most of those individuals that come from that culture don't actually take offense to that. I don't think they read
Totally.
into it. I think they might look
Totally.
at somebody and say, that guy's an idiot. He's wearing that wrong or something, you know?
Totally.
But I think that's probably the extent of their angst. And
Yeah.
yet it's everybody else that thinks they have to come in and rescue other people. They can speak up for themselves. Everybody can speak up for themselves and their cultures and whatever individually. Like nobody has to come rescue anybody else. But this
Yeah.
is the moral superior society that we live in. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
I mean, let me ask you this. So if Washington Redskins change their title to like rednecks or like, I don't know,
That would be awesome. More
whiteys or
more
something.
rednecks would actually go to the game and they would have pride in that. They would
I
take,
would too. I would be like, yeah, that's awesome. That's a
of
sweet
course,
name.
of
Yeah.
course. Yes, of course. But
Yeah.
whatever. All right. Well, should we answer some questions today?
Yeah. Let's do it with
All right.
Facebook
These are coming
mostly.
from Facebook, right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
All right. Let's get into it.
Get
All right.
after it.
Dad, Pillar Peril. On the merchandise side of your business, what are the biggest hurdles you face concerning growth? Are you constantly streamlining your ordering and inventory process? Have you had to cut ties with silk screening and embroidery places because they could not meet your expectations? And when quality controlling your orders, did you have to check your expectations for perfection at all because you would see every minute mistake? Thank you for your persistence in the work of this movement, and shout out to Kip for showing up every week.
That was nice. Even though, yeah, that was nice. Okay. Okay. So let's talk about the merchandise element of things, because that is a big and a growing component of the business model, frankly. So when I started, I worked with a local merchandise store that did a phenomenal job. And actually, up until I would say the last 6 months, we worked with them exclusively. So we had business with them for nearly 5 years, and I'm still very satisfied with what they did. We moved away for a couple of reasons I'll explain in a minute. And then what we would do is we would have our merchandise, t-shirts, hats, everything, shipped to a warehouse, a fulfillment warehouse. And so what that warehouse would do is they would charge me, X amount of dollars per shelf that I needed based on our inventory quantities. And then they would charge me per package. And it was getting stupid. They were just nickel and diming me over every little thing. Well, this isn't a traditional size package, so this is more. And then I noticed the shipping boxes and containers that they were purchasing were more expensive than I could find via Amazon on my own. And then they were charging for that shelf space. And then I would actually have multiple orders that were getting sent back because they were fulfilled wrong size, wrong color. So I told the people, I'm like, hey, for every order that you get sent back, like, I'm not paying you for that. Like, oh, no, that's built into the contract. I'm like, I'm not paying you to do crappy work. And then I started looking at their shipping rates. Their shipping rates were higher than what just an individual at that time could get.
Yeah.
So
it's not even a discount.
No, and you would think a shipping warehouse would be able to get a discount or something.
Yeah.
They would actually make your life easier. And it just became harder and harder. So several years ago, I would probably say 2 years, maybe 3, but right around 2 years ago, I reached out to this warehouse and I said, this fulfillment center, I think I should call it, is probably the more accurate term. I said, look, I'm done. Look, we're bringing this in house. My 11-year-old son's going to do this. Oh, yeah, I'll never be able to do it. And he does 10 times the job that they did. So we brought it all in house. I continue to work with that same merchandise company, and they would send it directly to us, and we bought some shelves, and we got our stamps.com account and got the printer. The printer was the thing that I made a mistake on. We used the inkjet printer for a long time.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know any better. And then I looked at what Stamps had, and they had the laser printer. And I think I bought that for $200, and it paid for itself because I don't have to buy ink anymore. It paid for itself in maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So
pricey.
I wish I would have known that, but that was a little mistake that we learned along the way.
And you're buying your own boxes.
We buy our own supplies, our own merchandise. My son does that. He'll go through every week and he'll say, okay, here's where we're at with boxes. Here's where we're at with these different t-shirts or these different hats. So my 13-year-old now is going in, he's doing inventory. He's managing our supplies, tape, boxes, et cetera, et cetera. And then we started working with another merchandise company because we were able to get a better deal on pricing on some shirts and hats. Same quality, same products that we're using now.
Yeah.
And their turnaround time was quicker than what we had experienced in the past. And as we grow and scale, we needed that to happen. So right now we do it in the front room of our house, but we're probably going to be looking at moving that to the attic because we're just outgrowing the front room. And plus we just don't have the space up there. So we're going to move it into the entire attic, and that will be the merchandise store up in the attic of the house, which would be cool. Kind of a cool feel up there.
When you get defects, do you return them back to, how does that work?
Yeah, I actually we don't get a whole lot of defects. I mean, I might have had a
So
couple
it's a
here and
little bit,
there. It's just
yeah.
not that many. And we just spot check as we go. So as we ship an order, we pull a shirt out and let's say it's a large and it's got some thread that we see that's, falling off or the coloring isn't right or whatever it might be, then we'll just set that one aside. We'll reach out to that person or the company, and usually they'll just credit us is what they'll do. They'll say, okay, well,
Because it doesn't make sense to ship stuff.
Yeah.
At
They're
that
like,
point,
okay, you paid $7 for that shirt. We'll just credit that shirt, on your next order or whatever. They're really good to work with. So yeah. So we do that, and the store continues to grow, and we continue to bring new products and services, and not services so much there in the store, but just products. And it's been really good. And it's been a good relationship builder with my son. And he's learned a lot about how to run a business and an organization and shipping. And I pay him per order. So every order that he ships out, I pay him a set amount. And then we tally it at the end of the week and I pay him that, and it goes into his bank account, and he's crushing it. He just bought that dirt bike last year, and he paid for it 100% on his own. He saved for 2 years and bought that with cash, which was pretty cool to go into the dealership and take care of that. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been a really good process.
It's cool. I lied. These few are from Instagram, and then we'll hop over to Facebook. Yeah, I was going to say, that's weird. These names don't make sense. Oh yeah, that's Instagram.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Louis Convery. Hey, Ryan, I've always wanted to ask you this question. You're one of the only few I listen to when it comes to masculinity and that I can appreciate and find a lot of value in. But you probably are aware of the resentful alpha, I hate women and families, red pill mindset that some Instagram pages and coaches push. I wanted to know, what are your thoughts and observations on that side of masculinity?
I think any movement or any cause could naturally have a tendency to go to the extreme. I actually think that's pretty natural. And so what you end up having is you have this spectrum of people who believe one thing or the other, and then there's outliers. And so there's always extremes. And I think when it comes to masculinity, it's very easy for misguided individuals and hurt individuals to take the concept of masculinity and define it or perceive it as some alpha machismo bullcrap that isn't actually going to serve anybody. And so what it ends up becoming is the male equivalent of extreme feminism, where
it's a victimhood group.
Right. Yeah. Men are victims. Everybody's out to get men. We got to stand on our own. We got to isolate ourselves. We got to go our own way. We're not going to get into this. Women are all evil. They're all out to get you. Society is stacked against you. And look, I think there's certainly some elements of truth to that need to be considered. Every once in a while, I'll have somebody who'll say, you're talking about this, but you're painting yourself as a victim. It isn't. You're not painting yourself as a victim to acknowledge reality. Victimhood is staying in this perpetual state of victimhood. But you're allowed to look at what is stacked against you. You're allowed to look at the threats without being a victim. It helps you equip yourself and arm yourself to get better, to improve, to put yourself in a better position. But when you start thinking other people are the enemy and it comes at a detriment to them and also to you, I think that's a problem. And that's where I see a lot of these alpha type movements going, is they've taken it so far to the extreme. It's attention grabbing, it's attention seeking, it's marketing, it's attention porn is really what it is. Like, let's make everything outrageous so that we get more eyeballs. And honestly, I believe Order of Man could be a little bit further down the tracks in some ways if we did that. But I've never really been like that. Like, I don't speak too much in hyperbole. I don't make things bigger issues generally. Occasionally I will, than they need to be. I don't try to get people riled up just for the sake of riling people up. And it doesn't get the attention that I see a lot of other people do. So sometimes I don't know if people actually believe the bullshit that they're spewing, or if they're just using it as a marketing tactic to get more eyeballs on their thing, which I know a lot of people do. I personally know of people who do that. Yeah. So, it's a marketing tactic you got to be aware of, but also it's a danger, and it puts women against men and men against society, and it paints people as perpetual victims, and men are not perpetual victims. We need to be aware of what's going on, And then we need to deal with it with a level of maturity and masculinity that's going to help us excel and help the people that we care about excel. And sometimes that just isn't as sexy as saying, "Oh, women are bitches. Society's out to get us." That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, and because most people are victims and they would love to
Of course,
latch
they
onto
resonate
that
with
and go,
that.
"Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's not take responsibility. Let me just point the finger."
Yeah.
All right, the bearded truth. How important is it, and why is it important for a man to have imaginative and creative spirit? And do you feel like this often is suppressed or considered not manly in today's culture? I tagged this
creative
because of your
spirit?
Instagram post. Yeah, because
What was my
you mentioned
Instagram?
this.
Oh, creativity.
Yeah,
Oh, or curiosity. What was it? I don't know.
it was
I
creative or
guess it was a way.
curiosity. I kind of
Yeah.
I lumped them together. Sorry, but
So this is interesting. So he said that potentially creativity would not be considered manly.
yeah. How do you feel like this is often suppressed or considered not manly in today's culture?
No, not at all. I mean, okay, so here's what I think. When I think about like the quintessential man, the stereotypical man, you think about this
Yeah.
tough, rugged, alpha almost archetype, and he's physical and he's strong. Somebody that comes to mind would be like a firefighter, for example, or a member of the military, or a contractor. Well, all of those guys are creative. Men that are building homes, like, yeah, they have their plans, but those plans have to be designed. They have to be drafted. There's little nuances and things come up where they have to adapt. And, oh, that wall is actually not going to work like that. We need to move it this way or change it or tweak it so that it actually stands and doesn't get in the way of this. Military members, as they're planning battle strategies, they're planning for contingents and what if this happens and what if that happens. And in this scenario where we haven't planned for, what do we do? Firefighters, same concept. Fire is predictable in a lot of ways, but also very unpredictable and not steady. And you're able to know exactly what it's going to do. So you're going to have to be creative. How do you work with your team? How do you communicate? If this happens, what do we do? How do we address it and deal with it? So creativity is not gender specific. Like, it has nothing to do with that at all. Now, I think maybe where he's going, and I can definitely see this, is that generally, I think that we tend to look at more of the artistic types as not as masculine. I think that's might be where he's going with that.
Or we might look at art as more creative than these other things.
Yeah.
And we
but
lose sight that there's creativity in a lot of jobs, not just playing music and singing and painting.
Yeah, but it's funny because even artistically, look around my office, for example, and I've got this picture of the angel Michael, and I've got a poem right there by my son, and I've got Man in the Arena, or excerpt from Man in the Arena by Theodore Roosevelt. I've got this wooden flag. I've got a poster over here. I've got an oil painted picture here. I've got this YouTube award on my wall right here, which means that I created enough content that people acknowledged what we did, and YouTube sent me that award because of it. I've got a picture my kids drew down here. Like, art is everywhere, and I've never considered it not masculine.
Yeah.
So I think you got to be careful wrapping up masculinity and femininity in this. Ideally, what you're trying to do as a man is to take your masculinity and harness it into productive outcomes. And if it means that you're inspiring people through your art, or you're entertaining them through art, think about an actor or a director who is a masterful storyteller. We had Randall Wallace, for example, on the podcast, who wrote the story of Braveheart and told that story in a motion picture that I don't think anybody would consider unmasculine.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good point.
So, yeah, you got to be careful of painting yourself into these things of saying, well, like playing the guitar, that's not masculine, or painting this picture is not masculine. Even if it wasn't, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, do you have to be macho? Do you have to be working on the car? Do you have to be exercising? Do you have to be firing a gun at every minute of your life? No, of course not. I think some of that you should do. You should know how to build something. You should know how to change the oil in your car. You should know how to lift weights properly. You should know how to fire a gun. You should know that, but that doesn't mean you need to do that stuff every waking hour of your life. I'm building this canoe right now. That's art. I'm working with my hands and I'm being creative and we're problem solving and we're also following the instructions and doing, there's a lot to it. And I don't consider it unmanly.
Yeah.
That's a thought that's never even crossed my mind. So it's not something
So
I really consider or care about, actually.
his other part of the question is how important is that imaginative, creative spirit, do you think?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. If all you ever do is follow the instructions and all you ever do is do what you're told to do and you never branch out and you never explore and you never try anything new, life's going to be pretty dull for you. You're going to be
Yeah.
boring. You're going to be mundane. You're not going to be fulfilled. You're not going to be excited because there's nothing to be curious about. There's no new skill set that you need to learn. When you're faced with difficult problems in very real circumstances, you won't know how to address them because you haven't been creative and you haven't learned to flex that creative muscle. So, yeah, I think you need to have some outlets to figure some things out. And this can happen in a lot of different ways. It can happen in jujitsu. Sure. You got to be creative. Somebody's cranking on your leg or cranking on your neck. Man, what do I need to do right here? And you got to stop and breathe and think about it. Or if you're writing a book, you might be stumped somewhere and you need to figure out, hey, what's a better way to frame this? Or what story should I tell with this? Or how can I communicate this effectively in a way that people will understand? These are all applicable skills outside of the skill set or the task at hand. It transfers to other areas of your life. So yeah, you got to have some creative outlets, and not to mention it's just fun. It's just exciting. It's challenging. It's thought provoking. So that alone is enough for me to want to engage in things that sound even remotely interesting.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking last week of the book that we're reading, the Iron Council. It breaks down motivation. One of the items that he breaks down, what drives motivation is curiosity, right? And creativity. Like there's a level of that needs to be involved in things that we're passionate about. Right. Cause cause I don't know about you. Like I'll have these little stints where I'm kind of curious about something and I can exhaust a lot of energy around this thing that I'm kind of creative, you know what I mean? Or I'm imagining or whatever. It has a sense of like, I don't know, like it comes with some drive and some perseverance when I'm kind of attached to some new idea or a new concept. So,
well, not only that, it drives innovation too. Like who's the first human being who looked at, let's say lightning hit a tree and the tree caught on fire. And who's the first human being who ever thought, I wonder if I could make that happen without having to wait for lightning.
Yeah.
Or who's the first human being who looked at a rock, a round boulder, and saw that maybe that thing could help me move these logs easier? Or who's the first person who looked at a 100-foot tree and decided, I'm actually going to chop that down, and I'm going to, rather than look for the cave that doesn't exist, I'm going to chop that down and I'm going to build this structure that I can sleep in. Yeah. And you know what? I actually want to chop that down, but I don't know how I'm going to do that. Maybe if I took this rock and I chiseled it down and I made a sharp edge of this rock and I could just whack it against that hard enough. And then somebody thought, well, okay, I could hold it in my hand, or I could put this long piece of wood on it and give it leverage. And then that will help me actually multiply my strength to chop this tree down. That's all creativity. Like somebody did that at some point. Somebody thought of that first and then utilized it. And gradually it grew and evolved, and technology advances through creativity. So not only is it helpful, it creates very real world applicable tools and technologies that we utilize, which is, I think, very masculine. Taking raw sources, taking raw products and then repurposing them in a way that will serve us. That's a very masculine thing.
That's cool. All right, Brand's Cog. When you speak of forming a tribe, how many men does that consist of? Also, can that be family members such as cousins? I have 2 awesome cousins in my corner that are strong, capable men. And how should I expand my tribe if you recommend it?
So on the cousins thing, here's what I would say. The term you used was creating a tribe. Creation, to go back to what we were talking about earlier, requires effort. It requires intentionality. So your tribe shouldn't by default be whoever's around you, because then you didn't create it. It just happens to be around you.
Yeah.
And sometimes that actually works out well. Like your cousins are two high caliber guys. So good. I'm not saying you shouldn't have these guys as part of your tribe, but now you're exercising intentionality. You're saying these are two members of my family who I'm very interested in building and developing a deeper relationship with. That's creation. That's intentionality. That's what we're talking about here. Now, when it comes to how many people should be in your tribe, I don't know. I don't think there's any hard and fast rule for that. If you have 3 guys in your corner who you guys talk on a regular basis, you do things together, you challenge each other, you hold each other accountable, and there's 2 or 3 of you, that's great. I think that there's 30 of you, that would be infinitely harder to do. But I would say if you had 3 to maybe 10 guys who you had relationships like this. And by the way, it doesn't always mean that you're going to operate together. Like all 10 of us are going to get together. Sometimes you have 2 guys like your cousins who you do things with, and then you have a couple of other buddies who happen to engage and enjoy the same hobbies and recreation and activities as you do. And there's 2 more there, and you have 2 more that you talk with from a spiritual perspective because they're at church and you guys are doing a men's group together. So they don't all have to interact and be there at once, but you might have different men for different reasons. But again, you have to be intentional and deliberate about who it is, as opposed to just, oh yeah, this is the guy I hung out with in high school and like we just kind of never broke up. It's like, okay, well, is that serving you anymore? Well, if I think about it, probably not. He's getting drunk every night and he's kind of a dick and he's kind of a loser. Okay, then probably you should have a different circle. I mean, help that guy to the degree that you can, but probably should think about having a different circle or a different tribe of people.
Yeah. And you mentioned this in the past, Ryan, like maybe that's a different tribe for different things, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's fine. There might be reasons why you spend time with these guys and it doesn't cross over into here for whatever reason. Like I have guys I hunt with, and I'll see them once, maybe twice a year, and that's it. And we hunt together and we have a great time and we give each other a hard time and we hold each other accountable and we enjoy the time while we have it. And then I don't see them for another year, and that's cool. We'll text or message every once in a while, but that's really the extent of our relationship.
Yeah. Ryan has had a hard time finding really high caliber guys. So he has to have multiple groups of guys that specialize in certain areas. So,
well, it's not that I have a hard time finding them so much as there's just not many as high caliber as me.
Yeah.
And so it's like scarce. It's, it's really scarce for me to choose from regarding who I want to have in my circle. I consider cutting you out just about every week, Kip.
It's got to be tough.
All right, proceed. That's a joke, by the way, guys. Don't message me and say, "Oh, you ran so narcissistic," because somebody
He's such a jerk.
He's so narcissistic. Get over yourself. It's a joke.
Relax. All right, Real Rational Foundation. What do you think that we already know the answer. Do you think that the modern feminist movement has gone too far? If so, in what ways?
No, I think it's awesome. I think devaluing men and masculinity, I think leading millions of women to believe that they need to act and behave like men in order to be valuable is a very good thing. I think the
how not to embrace their feminine traits.
Yeah. Well, I also think the dismantling of the nuclear family is a wonderful thing for society. It's just an incredible movement that I'm so glad and feel so blessed and fortunate that we have today. Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, and the point is, we'll all be able to make some more money, appease the masses, get socially accepted, and live unfulfilled lives. Awesome.
What could go wrong? No, it's horrible, man. It's horrible. The modern feminist movement is vile. It's disgusting. It is anything but feminine. It does not appreciate and honor women, let alone men. And it's an evil. It truly is an evil. I think where it started with noble intentions of making sure that women had equal rights and they were treated fairly. Of course. Of course.
Well, it's like you were saying earlier about the red pill movement, right? Like some of these movements can have great intentions initially,
right?
And then they can go off the beaten track and lose their vision and focus of what the original intention was.
Yeah, but it's vile and it's disgusting. And, it leads to abortion, which is murder. And It's just a nasty, nasty thing. And you know what I've noticed is these hardcore feminists, they aren't happy. They aren't grounded. They aren't feminine. They're angry and they're bitter and they're always yelling, and they think that that other people are always out to get them, and other people are the perpetrators of all these victimhoods, and it's gross, and it's very destructive. It's destructive for women, it's destructive for men, and it's dangerous to society. And these people ought to be looked at as the loonies, the crazies that nobody gives much attention to. It's a shame that this continues to grow in traction. But I think part of what we can do as men is ensure that people know and see us acting as honorable men, so that when one of these crazies says, well, men are the enemy, another woman can say, I have no idea what you're talking about. My husband leads with honor and integrity. The man that I work with or work for is somebody who treats us with class and respect and values what we bring to the equation. The men that I sit with on the school board care deeply about the children they're serving. The coach that my son or daughter plays for honors those kids and coaches them and gives them direction and guidance and discipline. Like, that's what more people need to see. And as more men behave that way, and that's part of what we're doing here, obviously, and more women stand up for the men who are doing those things, it shuts these gross, vile, disgusting people down, which is exactly what should happen.
Yeah. Let's see if there's anything you'd add to this guy's question based upon what you just said. So Possum After Hours, he says, Ryan, I just entered into a courtship with a girl and I'm learning to lead in a different context than usual business context, as I usually do. Do you have any advice?
He's in a relationship? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah. Maybe he's leading at work, but now this is new, right?
Right.
Do you have any advice as to how to make her feel heard and understood while leading out and making decisions that need to be made?
Man, we've talked so much about this. I don't know if I have any specific advice necessarily, other than it's funny when people say, how do I let her know she's listening or she's being listened to and heard? You listen to her. Yeah. Like you listen, you acknowledge, hey, I hear you. I see you struggling with this. And also, here's how you know if somebody heard you, if they're acting on what you shared.
Yeah.
So for example, if my wife came to me and she said, Ryan, I don't feel the intimacy like I did in our relationship. I feel distant and cold. Okay, I might have listened to that, and I can tell her I listened by saying, oh, I understand, and I'm sorry you feel that way, et cetera, et cetera. But how does she know that she's heard? I'd be more intimate with her.
There's action. Yeah.
Right. And then as I'm more intimate with her and I go out of my way, because this actually tends to be me in a lot of ways with the intimacy thing, because I'm more of a cold person. Like I don't need I'm driving on. Like I don't need a whole lot of that. And I have to be very aware of that because my wife does need that. And so it sounds funny to say, but it's true. It's more work for me than maybe the average person.
Not as natural. So
I have to work at it, because it would be very easy for me to just like charge through everything and not even think about the romance or the intimacy or any of that. It's like, just go. So I have to be very deliberate and intentional about that. And when I am, she feels heard and the relationship improves. So listening is being present. Hearing is acting upon it. And by the way, if you're leading, sometimes that means you need to actually act upon this stuff. You're leading yourself, right? You're leading yourself, and you're also showing her that what she's saying is valuable, that she is a valuable part of your life, and it will give you credibility and authority in her eyes when you ask her to listen to you. There's things that I've done in my life where I would expect, or hope at least, that my wife would listen and hear what it is I'm saying. And I promise you that it's better when I'm willing to listen and hear her, because she says, okay, well, I'm valuable to Ryan and he's valuable to me. So when it's something important that he's sharing and he's adamant about it, then I'm going to listen to it and act upon it, because clearly this is an important thing to him. And the things that are important to me, he acts upon those things as well. So even just the act of hearing and working on it is a leadership. I hesitate to use the term strategy because it seems like you're gaming it, but it is a leadership action. It's a leadership action to do that, to listen to other people. And if it's right and good and you value what those other people are saying, then act upon it.
Yeah. To add, a couple of things came to mind when you're saying to listen. I can't help but think of Stephen Covey, right? Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Mm-hmm. So I think it's listening is understanding what they're saying, not just listening. Right. And I think part of that, which has been a present for me of late, is understanding the desired outcome. And because sometimes, like I might get a request from you, Ryan, and you might say, hey, Kip, I need you to do XXX. And that's great. And I can act on that. But what's even more powerful is if I said, well, Ryan, what's the outcome you're looking for? That way, if those actions line up to it, awesome. If they don't, I still know what the desired outcome is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I provided clarity. So now I can pivot and adjust as necessary because we're on the same page of the vision, the desired outcome, not just the tangible results, right? Your spouse could easily say, honey, we don't spend enough time together. I think we should go on, we should spend more time together. Well, that's maybe not the desired outcome. The desired outcome is I want you to pay attention and understand me better or whatever. Right. You could say, yeah, we'll spend more time together. Let's go clean the garage. It's like,
let's go do errands together. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's not what she's looking for. Right. So make, seek to understand and make sure that you're clear on the desired outcome. I think that would be huge. Yeah.
Yeah, there's another thing as you said that. So let's take the relationship, what we have, the dynamic here, Kip, between you and I. If I asked you to do something, I mean, ultimately, I am the ultimate decision maker in the scenario, in this instance, right? Yep. So if I came to you and I said, hey, I need you to do X, Y, and Z, there's a couple of things here from the leadership perspective. Number one, it's always going to be in my interest to give you the authority to ask that kind of question, right? Like, okay, well, what is the objective, the ultimate objective? Another great question that I need to be open to receiving is, would you mind if I shared a couple of other strategies that might actually help you accomplish the same thing with a better result? I would love for Kip, you to be able to say that if that came to me. See, some guys won't do that because it represents a threat to their ego and their pride. But if you came to me and said, oh, you know what? Yeah, you asked me to do X, Y, and Z, but I've had this situation happen in the past and I did this, I did A, B, and C, and it actually worked out better. Then I need to give you the ability to ask that kind of questions and to have that dialogue. And then also I need to let go of my own ego enough to say, hey, you know what, Kip, you seem to know more than I do about this. Why don't we roll with A, B, and C? We'll circle back in a couple of weeks and see how it's working. If it's not, if it is, or what we need to tweak or adjust from there. But yeah, I appreciate you bringing that to the table. And then I made the decision as the leader to go with your recommendation because you know what it is you're doing.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, like, what's the probability of me being accountable and taking ownership over that idea?
Right.
Skyrockets.
Yeah. Significantly better.
Significant versus you saying, no, Kip, do A, B, C, and D in this way. I might even disagree with it. I might even slightly undermine it. If our relationship isn't one where I can say, hey, what's the desired outcome? Can we take this another approach or maybe another strategy? Like I might undermine you and think, maybe this is going to fail, and I knew we should have done it some other way, because it wasn't my idea. I wasn't even part of the decision,
Well, and here's another thing that could happen. So I come in and tell you we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and you're like, that is stupid. You're thinking to yourself, we should not be doing that. And then you're bent out of shape and you're pissed off the whole time because you just acted on it, right? Because I didn't give you any of that authority, right? So you just did it. Well, you actually might be doing it with a false or incomplete set of data.
Yeah.
Now, if you came to me and you said, hey, Ryan, okay, I can do X, Y, and Z, but it would help me if I knew why, and I told you all the things, it might enlighten you as to why, oh, yeah, that's actually a good point. I only had 60% of the picture. Ryan had another 40, and then he shared it with me, and X, Y, Z is actually a good idea, so I feel good about this.
Now I'm bought in. Yeah.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I like it. All right, Jiminy. I don't even know why I'm trying to pronounce
Jiminy.
Jiminy Nor.
Only.
Mr. Mickler, I work overnights. Time management is essential. I make time. How do you utilize time better for effective results with work, play, family, and rest? What is Mr. Mickler's strategy of time management?
I really like time blocking, where I know for this period of time, I'm going to be doing this thing, whether it's answering emails, doing a podcast, on social media, responding, or it might just be that, hey, from 5 to 8 o'clock this evening, I'll give you an example. Tonight, I know what I'm going to be doing tonight. I already have it mapped out. I have it planned out. I'm going to get done with work. I'm going to go train jujitsu. I'm going to get home about 7:30, 8 o'clock. I'm going to tuck the kids in, say goodnight. My wife and I are going to spend some time together talking about some different plans and trips that we have coming up, because we knew we needed to talk about this. And then I have to hop on another call this evening at 10 o'clock. It's kind of a late night for me. It's not usually like that, but it's already planned out.
Yeah.
Like there was no hesitancy in me telling you that, because I already know, like it's already mapped out. I know you and I are going to do this. And then at 2 o'clock, I've got a podcast. At 3:30, I've got another podcast. I could run through my entire day with you without hesitation. It's all written down. I got it all right here, and I got it on my Google Calendar. It's already written down. So how do you manage your time more effectively? That's what you do. You plan it and you block it out.
Yep.
And you give yourself the information you need to be able to execute effectively. But you also, one thing I've learned over the years is you have to put little buffers in. Because if you don't put buffers in, if you're just stacked task to task to task to task to task, some tasks take longer, some take shorter. There might be a little mini fire or a priority that comes up between tasks that if you give yourself a little buffer, you can take care of it. But the buffers are really important as well. So I would say you need to have a calendaring system. You need to have a way for managing that calendar. You need to have buffers built into place, and you need to look at this thing every single day. And by the way, I do it at the end of the day too, the work day that is. So I'll look at my calendar and I'll say, okay, well, I got everything done. And tomorrow I need these things. So I'm just going to plug these in here. So I plug them in. And then when I wake up in the morning, I look at it again, and it may be 100% right, and I'm going to roll with it, or I might need to adjust and tweak based on things that have come up overnight or things that I thought about that I didn't previously consider. So I'm looking at it every morning and every night without fail. And it's worked great for me when I do it like that.
Yeah. That end of day tasks, I think, are critical.
Yes.
And mostly because, and you don't know, when I think about work, for instance, because we do some of this training for our employees just recently. And one of the things that we recommend is before you wrap up your workday, look over any urgent emails, any urgent tasks, and adjust your work calendar for tomorrow before you leave for work.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is what that allows me to do is hop in my car and then be present with my family.
Total presence. Yep.
And then just be 100% focused on them, not in the back of my head, like, oh shit, I really need to still do that. Or I need to double check this calendar, or, oh, I never replied back to this other guy. It's like, and that's kind of time blocking. Like when you're done with work, you're done with work, right? When you're spending time with the family, spend time with the family. So I think that's been huge for me. One hack, because I think some guys, and I'm not saying this is true for this guy, but I think some people think I don't have time. They're like, it's impossible. I don't have any time. I remember one of the busiest times in my life. I said that, and I don't even remember the book, or even if it was someone that told me this. They're like, track your time for a week, 15-minute increments, and log how much time you spend doing whatever. At the end of the week, I was like, holy crap, I have tons of time.
I do have time.
Yeah, I have tons of time, right? I spent, this much time playing on my phone. I spent this much time watching TV. I spent this much time doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we have time. Usually that's not the issue. So if you feel that way, log your time and see where it's going. And then, if you might be different than me and you might say, geez, it's really tight. Okay, well then what are you giving up? And now you can just make a choice. Now you can prioritize, right? And make an adjustment and figure out where the priority sits.
And that's a very refreshing feeling. Even before we started recording this podcast, Kip, you asked if my wife and I could come visit for this thing. And I said, no, I'm going to make the decision on that and say, no, we're not going to do that.
He didn't even consider it. He was just like, no,
nope, not doing it. But I know, look, we have our calendar, we know our plans. And so I can say yes and no. And then we ended up working. She still got that Bang energy drink, man. I got to get you some go over to you. It looks like.
I'll lean over. Lean over this way.
There you go. Yeah. When you take a drink. Yeah. So I know, and then I can make those decisions with all of the information at hand and feel good about my decisions. Like I can tell you no, and I could feel good that, yeah, I would have liked to have gone and done that thing, but I feel good about making that decision because that was the right decision based on everything else that my wife and I have going on.
Totally. Right, so, totally.
And the last thing I think on that is, and then I'll maybe drive on from here, but imagine you're reading a book, you're reading a novel or even a series. So I've got Jack Cars coming on the podcast. We're recording this afternoon. Cool. And I want you to imagine for a second that you pick up his first book and you read the entire thing. You read 80 to 85% of it, but you don't read the last chapter. And you're like, oh, the new book came out, so I don't need to worry about that last chapter. I'm just going to go right to the next book. But you wouldn't do that, right? You would read the thing, for the most part, you'd read the thing in its entirety, and then you would move because it's sequential. That's how it's supposed to be done. It's the same thing with your day, capping your day, just like a novel. It has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an end. And you have to go through the entire process because when you close it out, that's a beautiful thing. You feel accomplished. You feel like you got something done. You get to reset. You get to take a break if you need to, just like you would at home. You know, you work from 8 to 6 o'clock. You're done. You got it all done. You feel good because you closed the book and you capped your day. And then you go home and you play and you wrestle and you eat dinner and you laugh and you tell jokes and stories and talk with each other because you have the emotional and mental freedom, clarity of focus to be able to do that because you're not thinking about the book you haven't finished reading.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get that little dopamine, you know, it's like, oh, bam, good. Finished, done. Yeah, next book. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Let's take a couple more.
All right. Perk Chuck. Thank you guys for all the work. I just grabbed all the ones where they say thank you at the beginning. I have no idea what the questions are.
I like that.
So thank you guys for all the work that you put into this. Order Man has been a huge help in getting me to understand how and where I am failing and how to pick up and keep moving after. My favorite aspect is to see the basic truths and how it transcends platforms and people and is just straight up truth. Ryan, thank you for leading this movement. Kip, thank you for the awful jokes and the counter perspective you always have. You know what? Next question.
Screw you, buddy.
Here's this question. When it comes to those moments to choose between something of pleasure, i.e. chips and salsa, I like how he related that towards you.
What do you mean? I don't eat chips and salsa.
Oh, just saying. How do you get to a place where including this is the exception and not the norm? Does it just take time and repeated no's, or did a switch just flip for you? Thank you.
For me, it takes rules, man, because I will not be able to resist.
Yeah. And I think it's different for everybody, right? Some people can do the, it's not a big deal. And other people are like, I don't visit Mexico because there's too much salsa and chips down there, Yeah,
okay.
They just stay out of Vegas,
Yeah. Apparently they didn't make their way across the border, huh? Okay. So yeah, I think you're right. I think different temptations for different people. If there was in fact, there's cake sitting on my counter right now. My favorite cake, carrot cake. It's sitting right on the counter and it's not actually a temptation for me. It's my favorite cake. And I can walk right by it. I can look at it. I'm like, that looks good. And then just keep walking. I don't need to have the carrot cake. But if there was a big bag of chips and salsa right there, yeah, hell yeah. I would eat all, and not just one, I would eat all of it. So you put rules in place to keep yourself from doing the things that you would otherwise do. This is discipline, right? It's you have willpower, you have motivation, you have willpower, and then you have discipline, which I think is similar to willpower. And then you have systems. And systems are even better. Everybody's like, oh, screw motivation. Discipline's where it's at. No, screw discipline. That's fleeting. Rules are where it's at.
Yeah.
Rules, systems, processes, so that you don't have to deplete your willpower. If there's exercise equipment, if there's a pull, and there's not, but that's my earbud there. If there was a pull-up bar hanging right there, do you think I would do more or less pull-ups throughout the day if there was a pull-up bar in my office?
You would just do a pull-up every so often if it's just sitting there.
That's what you would do.
Yeah.
There's a kettlebell here. There's my war clubs from Origin over there. If they're sitting right on my desk, and it's no surprise to me that I use them more often than if they were sitting somewhere else where I wouldn't have easy access to those things. Okay. So James Clear talks a lot about this in his book, Atomic Habits. making the things that you want to do easier, less friction, and more friction to the things that you don't want to do or shouldn't be doing. So if you want to drink all the alcohol, probably shouldn't have all the alcohol in your house. Yeah. That's friction, and that's good if it's something that you don't want to attach yourself to.
Yeah. When you can create friction, one of the things
that's what you should be doing.
I don't know why it happened, but like a year ago, I was eating a good cookie. I love cookies. And I said, Hey, babe, how many calories is that cookie? And she told me, and I'm like, how long would I have to run to undo that cookie I just ate? She's like, that's about 3 miles. And I'm like, that's not worth that cookie.
3 miles for a cookie? No way, man.
And so
if you said now a quarter of a mile, I'm in. I'm on it. No problem.
Yeah, but if you translate cookies to running, you're like, screw that. I am not eating Thin Mints, right? That's a marathon. If I eat that box, no way.
Well, that's your problem. You're talking about Thin Mints. Now, if you were talking about those little ones with, I can't remember, are they what's the ones, the chocolate ones with peanut butter in the middle?
Oh, Samoans. Samoans?
Samoas are aren't Samoas the coconut ones?
With the stuff on top. Okay, so which
that's gross.
Peanut butter in the middle?
Yeah, they're like little chocolate deliciousness. They're like
with peanut butter.
But they have peanut butter just in the middle. And it's like a cookie, and it's got peanut butter in the middle, and it's got the chocolate over it.
I don't know.
I would run a few miles for some of those for sure.
Oh, okay. I say I'm all about the shortbread cookies. I'm like, ooh,
no,
I'll run a marathon.
Samoas don't even tempt me at all. Put coconut on there, you just ruin a cookie.
But like that's friction of like get it out of the house, but also like creating meaning around it. It's like, okay, I'm going to create friction. If I eat that cookie, I gotta counter those calories. Am I willing to do that? Yes or no?
Right. So create friction where you think it should exist, and eliminate friction where you think it shouldn't.
Yeah. Okay. Last question.
Let's do it.
Bob Ross, and this is a little, we're hopping into Facebook. This is similar, but I want to bring it up because it was similar to a previous question. Maybe you'd add some things to this. Thank you for what you both do. How do you prioritize family, work, house responsibilities when you have more to do than possible? I feel I do a good job, but it bothers me when I can't get everything done and I have to cut from my to-do list.
Well, so the first thing you need to do, let's think about anxiety for a minute. I know this isn't necessarily an anxiety question, but I want you to wrap your head around anxiety.
It feels like anxiety when you look at that to-do list and you're like, it's impossible. Yeah.
And where does that stem from? Unmet or unrealized expectations. That's where anxiety comes from.
It should be this way. My life should be this. This list
or it should have. It should have been this.
Yep.
You can do it in the past and you can do it in the future. Right?
Yeah.
It should be this way. I'm stressed out because I know it's not going to be this way. And so I'm anxious and now I have anxiety. Or I didn't perform the way I thought I should, expectation, and I fell short, unmet expectation. And now all I can think about is how horrible my previous performance was instead of being present in the moment. That's where anxiety stems from. It's unrealized expectations or unmet expectations. So what can you do? Well, there's only really a couple of things. You can either meet your expectations or you could change your expectations. Those are the only two things you can do. And that will eliminate anxiety.
How do you know you're not bowing out of those expectations?
Well, it's hard because
like taking the easy path. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know, but you know.
Yeah.
Right. We all know, like, if I really think about it, I was just kind of being lazy.
Yeah. I do think there's a price to be paid here though.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you just explained me, right? Asia and I were just talking about this last weekend. If it were up to me, we'd probably go on no family vacations. There'd be no fun or enjoyment, and our lives would be very orderly and effective.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd all die miserable with crappy relationships, right?
Right.
If it were up to my wife, we lived a heyday life with chaos.
You would have, you would have, bounced that last check right before you guys signed out of this life, and
totally
everything would have been good.
Yeah. And she would be happy with that approach.
Sure.
And I would be
of
like
course.
Anxiety. Right.
Right.
And so I love how I just stole Bob's question and made it my own here. So, but this is me. I'm anxious. Like that garage needs cleaned up. Man, I got these 40 things that need to get done at the house. There's these other things that I'm progressing at work. And, I feel torn, thin. I don't have enough time. I'm balancing these things and I'm stressed. I do feel that I can meet my expectation, but it comes at a price. And the price is I'm not spending any time with my family. I'm probably irritable. I'm probably walking around the house pissed off because I got my expectations met and then it got disrupted by everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that they didn't put that thing away. They didn't do this. They didn't keep my expectation going. So I could get that moment of like, oh yes, I got it all resolved. I'm in the clear, but it's short-lived. And it comes at a price of how I show up in my life.
Well, there's a couple of
Mostly to my
things. I
family.
mean, yeah, and I very much relate with that, and I would say there are opportunities to enlist people in your expectations. And as a father and a leader of your community and family and business, you should be doing that. I have an expectation, my wife and I, for example, on the way the house is to be kept. And if we didn't have that expectation and then expect people to meet it, the house would be complete chaos with 4 kids and it would be clutter and it would be gross.
Yeah, totally butting heads, right?
That's right. So we've communicated the standard. We have talked about it. There are consequences for not upholding it. And we've enlisted the people who will be impacted by our decisions in the expectation. That is important. But there's another thing here too. And sometimes it's just as simple as asking yourself, what is most important right now?
Yeah.
So for example, this weekend I was outside. We were building these what are called canoe cradles. So when we flip the canoe over, they basically sit in this cradle so that we can fiberglass the inside of the hull. So I'm sitting there. We're building these
just
canoe
a
cradles.
Frame that it sits in.
That's right. That's all it is. It's like 2 stands, one for each end, and it just sits on some carpet that's held up in the stands. So we're building these. I'm really excited about it. I want to get these done. I've been thinking about them for a couple of days because next week we're going to flip the canoe over and put them on this thing. So I know I need to get this done. So I'm doing it. And my daughter's like, hey, I want to show you something. I'm riding my bike. I want to show you something. What's my knee-jerk reaction is like, I don't want to see it right now because I'm building these and I want to do this thing.
Yeah.
Right? Instead, fortunately, and I don't always get it right. Very rarely do I get it right. Instead, I said, what's the most important thing right now? And the most important thing right now is to go outside for 2 minutes. Even though I'm in the middle of doing this thing that I wanted to do, and it's for me and everything else, and I've thought about it for a couple of days now. The most important thing in this moment is that I go outside and I watch my daughter do her thing on her bike. It's probably silly. It's probably not. I'm trying to say this quietly. It's because she's probably out there. It's probably not really all that amazing, but it's important to her.
Yeah.
It's important to her. And therefore, the most important thing in that moment for me was to let her know that what it was important to her was important to me. And by the way, sometimes that's not always the case. I might be in the middle of a very important cut, for example, or I might be on this podcast. I can hear my kids out there right now. They're playing around. They're playing Legos. They're probably wrestling. They're doing all kinds of stuff. Maybe having lunch here shortly. What's the most important thing for me right now? Well, frankly, the most important thing for me right now is to be on this podcast, Kip, with you. Because if it wasn't, I'd be doing something else. But I've communicated that to my kids. They know it is. And they know that when I'm done, I get to go sit down and have lunch with them and play and talk and do what we do. But this is the most important thing right now. So I ask that question a lot. What's the most important thing I can be doing? And as I pull up my planner every single morning, I'm going to look and say, okay, well, what's the most important thing to get done right now, today? And then I do it. And then I go back through the list and I say, what's the next most important thing? Oh, that I need to do. Okay, good. Do that. And I keep working through that list. And at the end of the day, 90% of the time, because I don't always get it right, I feel pretty darn good about getting my work done, executing my calendar, getting after my tasks, knocking out a whole bunch of these in day one. And then I'm able to fully engage and be present for my family and other aspects of my life.
I love it. What's the quote? Better, best. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I've just heard like good, better, best. But I don't know if there's a quote.
Yeah, but don't let don't let better like sacrifice your best, or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's the, you know, like good is the enemy of great and things like that I think are all kind of along the same lines of, you know, don't settle. A lot of people have, you know, it's good, it's okay. I'm not interested in that.
I should be doing this, but it's not the thing you should be doing. Yeah.
Or you've done something, and you know, again, I'm going back to the canoe because there's so many lessons there. You know, I was working on it, and it wasn't great. The epoxy, the third coat of epoxy we did wasn't great. And my wife came down. I'm like, well, take a look at it. And she came down. She's like, it's amazing. It looks so great. You did so good. I'm like, no, I really didn't. It doesn't look good. I don't like it. She's like, well, you've never done it before. I don't care. That's not a reason for it to be less than I'm capable of. So we redid it. And now it looks significantly better. I'm very proud of the way that it turned out, because I'm not going to settle for it because I know it's like, well, I've never done it before, so I guess like it's okay. No, it's not okay.
Well, it's going to bother you too. You'd be like,
exactly.
damn, third coat of epoxy.
Right. And it's not okay. It's not okay to do less than you're capable of. Yeah, I know we need to afford ourselves some grace, and things are, and to go back to expectations, things are going to take longer, and they're going to be harder, and they're not going to turn out the way that you like. So yes, you have to be aware of those things, but also do your best.
Yeah.
The best you can do. Do that.
To clear that all up, and maybe wrap that up. I like that, because, you know, do your best. And then we talked about expectations, like, you know, might have unrealistic expectation, or not unrealistic, but certain expectations are to be met. What's great about what you said earlier, it's being aware of them so you can prioritize and do your best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's really what resetting expectation is saying, okay, well, hold on. It's assessment is what it is. It's saying, okay, these are the things that I'm wanting to get done, but are they the things I should be doing? Are they in the top priority? And then getting clarity around it, versus this, you know, this natural tendency that we have in life of like, well, I'll just do it more, or you know what I mean? I can have it all. It's like, no, there's a price for all things. So what are you willing to adjust? What's the priority? And then do your best in those things that you've identified.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to do it all. Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes we as men believe we do. We have to do everything. No, you have to make conscious decisions. And sometimes you have to say no. Like I was talking to you earlier about, you know, sometimes I would have loved to have gone and done that, but that's not in the cards right now. I'm not, no. And my no's are no's and my yeses are yeses. And whenever I do anything but that, I always feel crappy about it, because I either let something go, or I feel guilty because I feel like I should be doing something else, or I let somebody down. Yeah. My no's are no's, my yeses are yeses. And it's so much better that way.
Yeah. And you're not being fully committed. I'm assuming a lot of those cases where you're trying to, you know what I mean, take on too much.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, cool. Well, let's wrap it up.
Yep. So we got we filtered our questions today from Instagram as well as from our Facebook group. That Facebook group, to join us there, go to facebook.com/group/order of man. To follow Mr. Michler on Instagram, go to @RyanMichler. That's MICHLER. And it's a new quarter our new quarter in the Iron Council starts today.
Yeah.
So it's not too late. If you want to band with us in the second quarter of highly effectiveness, and be held more accountable and to drive forward, join us in the Iron Council. That's orderofman.com/Iron Council to learn more. Also related to what we do in the Iron Council is our battle plans. And you can pick up your battle planner from our store.
Actually, hold on, Kit. Before you say that, let me plug something else along those lines. Check out our new battle planning app.
Yep.
Go check that out. If you go to 12-week battle planner, the number 12, so 12-week battle planner, it's going to pull up the option for Android and Apple devices, and you can pull up the digital battle planner, which is a very, very cool and comprehensive app to keep you on track this quarter.
Yeah. And that's the app that we use within the Iron Council. So if you can't join us in the IC, but you kind of want to join us on this path of being more effective men, just download that battle planner app, you know, and start the new quarter today. So
that's right.
And as always, band with us, help drive the movement. You can do so by subscribing to the podcast, subscribing to the YouTube channel, and sharing this message with those around you, man, and build your own tribes.
Right. And leave your ratings and reviews. That's a lot to do, guys, but you have your marching orders. So get after
It's
it. We will be
easy.
back. Easy, very easy to do. And it goes a long way. So anyways, we'll be back on Friday for our Friday field notes. But until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.